Today, you and me will address this question together. Whether it's a good idea to buy the bigger size condo that you can afford, and at most in future, just downgrade to a HDB flat. So I'll give you some data points using a project that I'm very interested in myself, and I currently still stay near it. So if you know why is it ready, don't give it away and follow me on this journey. And this tutorial also addresses a few concerns which are here on the ground, which is firstly, you can buy a condo and downgrade in future to a 4-room flat and you have a cash buffer to retire on. But on the other hand, if you buy a 4-room flat right now, you can't possibly cash out too much and downgrade to a 3-room flat. I'll address that concern. And the second concern that I hear on the ground is, if you don't buy a condo right now and you wait until you're 60, you can't take too much of a loan by then, correct? So why not buy a condo now when you're a bit younger? You can at least borrow a bit more. So I'll address both of these concerns as well as show you my findings as to this question. Is it a good idea to buy the bigger size condo you can afford right now? And if this topic interests you, continue watching on. Hi guys, welcome back. Now if you stay around the Tiong Bahru and Red Hill area, you do know this project, which is Echelon. I still stay near it and naturally I'm curious about developments for it. So when I do this research, it's also really for my own understanding, because this is a project that I might be purchasing in future, we never know. I actually did visit the showroom many years back with my wife, and it actually did leave a good impression in me. However, back then I was already owning a HDB without the MOP fulfilled, so I couldn't actually buy when I actually visited that showroom. And in any case, back then, about age of 29, I didn't really have the money to make that capital payments. So revisiting this project is something close to my heart, and let me show you some findings. Just as a background, this project started selling in 2013 and the TOP, if I'm not wrong, is about 2016. So let's start with some of the latest transactions. And what I can show you over here is boxed up in red, something that is about 1,000 square feet. Boxed up in green, something that's a bit more shoebox, probably a 1+1 bedder. And last but not least, the blue one. This is probably a 3-bedroom unit. And that is where we'll start the discussions with. Because if you're looking to buy the biggest flat that you can afford, then naturally 1,003 square feet is something that matches a HDB 5-room, at least 3 bedrooms or probably 3.5 bedrooms that you can move the whole family in and live quite comfortably. So that will be the whole basis of today's case study. Now, as we know, this unit in block 9 on level 21 was sold off at 2.45 million. So let's take a guess what's the purchasing price to really discover if there is any capital gains, or if there is, how much is it. So I've actually done the heavy lifting for you. I've actually dug up data points using 99.co. So what I've found is a comparable unit. Same square feet, same block, just 4 floors lower. And when we see the screenshot, we realize that we can use this to estimate the purchasing price of that person that sold off the 21st floor unit. And assuming it's at least $5,000 per floor, the person selling's purchasing price back then in 2013 is probably going to be about $2.07 to $2.08 million. Wow, that is probably a gain of 380,000, correct? All in a span of 8.5 years. Now, to understand and quantify this amount of gain, let me put some parameters to things. If we assume the interest rate on the average for the whole tenure of 8.5 years is 1.5% and the loan is 1.5 million, how much interest cost is it going to be? Now, 1.5% is definitely reasonable, because if we see SIBOR, historically, you realize that back then, 2015, 2016, 2017, it was about 1%, 1% plus. And then you need to add a spread, right? So 1.5% is definitely reasonable. And in any case, if the TOP is in 2016, we'll input that data to this amortization chart. What do we have over here? Boxed up for you to see is total interest cost since 2016 is about $122.9 thousand. Now, why do we use 2016? Because if you buy a built-up project, you only pay progressive payments and the full amount of loan only kicks in when it's TOP. So this is, as far as I can, a good simulation to total interest costs. And my figure that I've come up with is $122,000 worth of interest. Now, let's factor in other costs, and the biggest one to note is stamp duty. For purchasing price about 2.07, 2.08 million, the stamp duty would be about $56.7 thousand. Now take note again, back then, stamp duty was flat 3% less 5,400. Right now there's a tiering. Do note also that more than $1 million, it's at 4% already. So last time it was slightly lower in terms of stamp duty. All in all, what we can guess is that if the total gains of 380,000 less 122,000 plus in loan and less stamp duty of $56.7 thousand, the net gain looks to be about $200,000. Quite good, correct? Validates the idea of buying the biggest condo you can afford. You stay in it, it looks comfortable, and then subsequently you can cash out with a gain. So let's look in terms of the investment rate of return, because this is capital gain, correct? Quantum is 2 something million, capital gain 200,000, but again, you have leverage through mortgage, and then the capital base is not that big. So let's put in actual numbers. Selling price, if we assume what we see, 2.45 million, and when you sell, you have to less off the balance of the loan, which is about $1.185 million. All in all, the total amount that this person would get in selling the flat now will be $1.265 million. Now with this final cashing out amount, we can work backwards to really discover the internal rate of return, correct, on this purchase itself. And with that, I also need to input certain assumptions. If not, the numbers will go all haywire. So the first assumption to input is actually only 6 years. That's when TOP kicks in. Although capital is made in the progressive payment, we'll simplify it and we'll only put 6 years, which is 72 months. Then up next, we need to input the payments per month, correct? And luckily the amortization calculator has that for us, and it is $5,999 per month for the mortgage loan itself. And if you have followed a case over here, you understand that we've taken a loan of $1.5 million, which means our down payment in total is $570,000. But in present value, we also need to add in stamp duty, correct? So the total present value is $570,000 plus $56,700, which is equals to $626,700. With that, we can input the real return to get to this future value. And I've done the heavy lifting. That internal rate of return is about 3.8% per annum. Now, as you can see, I have actually filmed this repeatedly because I was a bit shocked. 3.8%, did I get something wrong or not? So I filmed this quite a few times, as you can see, and I'm pretty sure my calculations are correct. So I'll leave the formula below for you to double check. This 3.8%, while it's above CPF 2.5%, but it's really nothing to shout about. It seems a bit disappointing actually. My job is really to show you the risk or a balancing point of view before you embark on your own property purchase. So I always encourage critical thinking. That's why I've done all this number crunching for you. So again, smash that like button. Now the question falls back again. This case required someone to pay $6,000 per month in terms of mortgage just to sustain that $1.5 million loan. And now let's think back. How good is it to buy and then flip it away when it's TOP? Because in any case, when it's TOP, you probably have cleared the seller stamp duty duration already. So let me show you some of the data that I've managed to dig up. I found one comparable transaction that is in 2015 June. And that is the same block 9, 1,313 square feet. And the selling price then was $2.01 million only. I don't know if this is a developer sale or not. So if you follow the arrow that I'm pointing, what we can quickly realize is that if you bought in 2013 and you try to flip away in 2015, 2016, the chances of gains are actually pretty slim. In any case, I couldn't find any data, which really reinforced that nobody was selling out in 2016 for that size of unit, simply because there wasn't any gain. So the assumption is if you buy and then TOP, if there's a gain, you sell it away. I think that one really is not guaranteed. Or rather, the situation needs to be very favorable, then you have that outcome. If not, more often than not, do not make that assumption. But you may be saying also, this is homestay, so not flipping. I get it. Then the main question again is $6,000 per month. Make sure it's a budget that is comfortable. And to extrapolate that situation, I've actually found more data to highlight certain risk. Now, for example, you are able to hold for 6 years. You stayed inside for a couple of years after TOP. How does it look like? What we realized when I map out the transactions over here, if you were to sell this unit in block 9 again, square area 1,313 square feet, you'll be selling at a price of about $2.16 million only. Now let's try to guess what's the purchasing price for this person that is selling. You realize that the purchasing price, if we use again at least $5,000 per floor, the best data we can find is this one over here on top. The purchasing price for this unit back then is probably $2.08 to $2.09 million. Follow me on it? That means, again, there's only like 80,000 capital gain, which means with a stamp duty inside, all the gains are almost wiped out. And with interest factored in and charges factored in, it's probably a losing sale net. So again, when we see transactions, they don't factor in stamp duty and interest costs. That's why there are very few losing transactions mentioned. But when you factor all this in, it's actually not an easy equation to overcome. And 2019 again is a time whereby property was starting to pick up already. It was not a distressed period of time. So all in all, let me show you the roadmap. If you were to buy this unit in 2013, and then when in TOP, what kind of price is it? And then in 2019, after you stay in a few years, what is it? And last but not least, right now, what can you get when you sell it off? You realize that the cycle can be mapped out over here with the blue arrows. At the start, 2013 and 2015, probably slight capital losses. And then marginal slight gain at 2019. But again, when you factor in costs, the marginal gains are wiped out. And then this large wave up in terms of prices, whereby things started to look a lot more optimistic in 2021. And then right now in 2022, you realize that finally there is gains that we can talk about, which is what I presented at the start of the video. So if you follow this complete journey, you realize a few learning points. Firstly, you definitely do need holding power. $6,000 per month in terms of mortgage, make sure that it's comfortable. If it is, then this property might suit you. If it isn't, stretching yourself and then holding on for a few years here and there is likely not a good idea. The second is that the interest rates really do impact the internal rate of return. Our case study, we've derived 3.8% per annum, but that's again with a 1.5% loan. If the loan rates in future are higher, then it would likely drag down the internal rate of return when you make that property purchase. And last but not least, the timing, the market cycle is very important, because if you have bought at a high cycle, it'll take some years before your property has even appreciated. Now, what do you think of the conclusions? Agree with me? Agree? Again, smash the like button or leave in the comment sections your questions. Now, while I've done up the research for this 1,313 square feet, I've also actually looked at some data for the smaller size units. So might as well let me present a case also. If you have sold off your shoebox investment in 2021, which is this 732 square feet green box over here, let me show you your hypothetical journey. Did this situation in the green box actually make money or not? I've dug up data points. What I found is that using the same block 7, same size 732 square feet, I found 2 transactions in 2013. And since they were on a different level, and we put the assumption at least $5,000 per floor, the person selling off level 13, which is the green box, probably made the purchase at between $1.32 million to $1.36 million. So net on paper, there's slight capital gain, but if we add in stamp duty again, the capital gain is wiped out. But this is very likely an investment property, correct? I get it. The concept usually is if you find rental with it, what is the internal rate of return? There are a lot of assumptions to things, but again, rental yield, you need to reduce away maintenance costs, you need to reduce away income tax that impacts to you, need also less away capital expenses because fridges get damaged, aircon needs replacement, and you also need to factor in agent fees. So net, the internal rate of return, from my point of view, isn't that good. But maybe also this is one data point from a mature estate. What if we look at different projects? Will we get a different result? If you're keen, smash or subscribe. I'll actually be looking around for other projects that I have personal interest in. So while I search for myself, I share with you. And I'm actually targeting something in Bishan. Let me tidy it up and see if it's a good case study to share with you in due time. Now, I promised to answer 2 questions at the start of this video, which is first, if you buy a 4-room flat, you can't really downgrade to a 3-room flat. But if you buy a condo, you can still downgrade in future to a 4-room flat and then cash in some for retirement, correct? Now, the problem with this pitch is pretty obvious. Firstly, holding power. Make sure that $6,000 per month is okay. And secondly, is this point. If you have the same income owning a 4-room HDB flat and this $2 million condo, It will be a big surprise if you stay in the 4-room flat and don't come up with it with a much bigger CPF and a much bigger investment portfolio, because you definitely have a lot of surplus savings. Someone staying in the condo has a much higher mortgage as well as much higher living expense. So that argument has a flaw. With the same income you stay in a 4-room flat, technically you did not downgrade at all. You should have a big enough retirement buffer already for yourself. The second concern is you cannot take a loan at the age of 60, probably can't buy a condo then. That's possibly true, and with that I also understand that home is something close to heart. If you really want to stay in a condo and you need that loan to help you with that objective, then you decide for yourself and just make sure some of the affordability points that I've raised today are points that you have considered carefully in your decision making. With that, I'll sign off from this tutorial. Hopefully it's been of good value to you, and I'd like to introduce you to the previous video that I've done, which is similar to this topic. Is it better to buy a 5-room HDB flat or a 4-room HDB flat? Follow that tutorial, it has some interesting findings for you, and with that I'll sign off from here and see you there. Take care and goodbye.